Enid, Plainsmen Football, 2015.
Hey, we're all putting gas on today.
Plainsmen Football, getting it done. Plainsmen Football, where preparation is repetition.
Ready to go.
Enid Plainsmen Football, we don't get tired. Plainsmen Football, effort, technique, and how we treat one another.
Those are the things we're going to be great at. When people look at videos, they're going to see those three things.
Now, from the Enid Television Network studios, here's head coach Steve Hayes with Steve Kine.
Wrap up, good tackle.
Welcome to Plainsmen Football. I'm Steve Kine. Thanks for joining us again. You can see the young man to my left and your right, Coach Steve Hayes. Coach, we kicked off the football year last week with Ponca City. Didn't quite turn out like we expected. Kind of give us your overall assessment of the game.
That's even kind of an understatement. I mean, I think anytime we turn the ball over 6 times, 5 times on offense and once on special teams, and make the mistakes that we made defensively, it's going to be hard to beat anybody. I don't care who you're playing. That's just too many possessions that you give away to the other team.
Forgive me for interrupting right off the bat, but you said something a couple weeks ago when we visited during two-a-days and the scrimmages. You were talking directly on turnovers. Mm-hmm. That if a team is involved in turnovers, it's not going to be good.
It's not.
And so Friday was an example of that. I'm sorry. Go ahead with your assessment.
But you're exactly right. I'm a strong believer. If you take care of the football, you create turnovers by the other team, and you prevent them on your side of the ball, you've got a great chance of winning the game. We had a couple promising drives offensively that ended in turnovers on their side of the field. We start the game right off the bat with a positive play and then a snap over the head. I mean, even balls you don't lose, if you lose possession and have to work on recovering them, you've lost a play. And I think we lost too many plays to mistakes like that. And we've got to correct that. I mean, that's a correctable mistake, but we've got to make it a point of emphasis this week and correct those things. Jumped off sides way too many times defensively, extended drives for them. That's the discipline of watching the football, and we've got to correct that. Just a number of things that we need to improve at that we were disappointed in, that we did not do well, honestly.
During two-a-days, I remember saying on the back of your hat, we don't get tired and things of this nature. How was the physical condition of the team?
I think compared to who we were playing, fine. I mean, I think the kids played well. We had a lot of kids playing both ways. We had some kids that were out that facilitated some more playing time by other kids.
Okay.
But I think overall, that wasn't a factor in the outcome as much as some of the other mistakes that we made. It's a good question.
In the first quarter, it seemed like Ponca City scored on the first 2 or first 3 possessions. What's going on the sidelines? What are you thinking? What's happening to the game plan?
If we're able to go at the tempo that we want to go at and play at the tempo we want to go at, I think we're okay. I mean, in the last couple of years where I came from, there were some times where the teams jumped out on top of us, but because of the tempo and the way we play, we were able to get back in the game pretty quickly. And so there was no panic at that point in time. It's just a matter of being able to do things right and execute well.
What is the mindset of your coaching staff at the end of the first quarter? It's 14-0, and it just kind of seemed like that first quarter is, well, if anything can go wrong, it's going to go wrong. But it could have been much worse than 14-0, I think, in the first quarter. But
sure.
What's the mindset of your defensive staff and all your special team coaches and everybody? What are they doing besides rallying everyone?
Well, I think as a coach and as a player, you've got to forget what just happened and you've got to play the next play. And that's really one of the things we do emphasize is, hey, always play the next play, regardless of whether the last play was a good play, bad play. The next play is the one that matters. And really the only value the previous play has is in terms of the lessons we learn and how we apply it to the next play. And I think when you get into the middle of the game, there's no 14-point plays, there's no 26-point plays. There's just that next play and getting the value of that next play and trying to stack multiple good plays in a row on top of one another, I think is really the starting point. Back in 1994, I was a part of one of the greatest comebacks in Texas high school football history when Plano East played John Tyler, and we were behind 41-17 with about 8 minutes left to go in the game, and actually recaptured the league at 44-41. And the lesson we learned from that was all we really did was just take one snap at a time and try to execute that snap. Because if you don't execute the next snap, the 10 after that aren't that big. I mean, you've got to start doing something right. And I think in the middle of that circumstances, that's really what you do, is you focus on what you have under your control, and that's that next play.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on Plainsmen Football 2015. We'd like to remind everyone that we're airing this on Channel 11 and also 111 on the Enid Television Network. And we're also airing it, as we've shared it with Enid Public Schools, as they air it on Channel 19. So we're trying to get Coach Steve Hayes as much exposure as possible to what Enid Plainsmen football is all about this year. During the first half, I made a mental note, Coach, there was probably 4, maybe 5 times that the defense jumped in that neutral zone and then jumped back, and then there goes the flag. And for someone who's watching and they see everybody kind of jump in unison, explain, because if you're on the top level of the stands or if you're watching it on TV, you're not hearing the opposing quarterback making calls or anything of this nature. Why does this happen?
Well, I mean, I think one of the offensive strategies that you use, which is a good strategy, and Paul Cassidy did a great job of it, is you vary your snap count to keep the defensive line from kind of getting a gauge and a beat and a rhythm on when you snap the ball. And our kids did not do a good job of being disciplined and watching the football and moving when the football moved. They went on that 1 count rhythm, and then so when he used a 2 count rhythm, we jumped, and we can't do that. And it's already been a big point of emphasis this week. We had several opportunities for them to be able to stay on side yesterday in practice, and several young men that did bear crawls when they didn't. By the end of practice, it was amazing. We had nobody jumping off sides when we went on 2, and it will continue to be a major point of emphasis for the rest of the year. Those are mistakes that you can't have.
Well, I'm a guilty party, Coach. I've jumped off sides, and I was so used to going on that first count or whatever, and then all of a sudden, why am I the only one on the other side and the ball hasn't moved, But you can understand how it can happen, but I appreciate that explanation for someone who said, well, why are they just keep jumping off sides? Well, again, if that opposing team can be creative enough and change up the snap, that will happen.
Yes.
At halftime, it's 26-0. Excuse me. You go into the locker room. What's the discussion? Can you tell us what you're talking about?
It really is a lot of what I just said, and that what do we control in this moment? We control our effort. We control how we respond to our mistakes. We can only play this game one play at a time, and there are no 26-point plays. I think the one thing that I was a little disappointed in is that we immediately came out after halftime and we gave up that long touchdown run on their first offensive snap. That was to me disappointing in that we were not more prepared for that play based on our conversations at halftime. That's something that we definitely have to do a better job of. I'm not used to having that type of response to halftime. I thought offensively we moved the ball better in the second half. We had more success, more positive offensive yardage. But even then again, we had a couple drives that were very good drives that ended with turnovers. And we've got to take care of the football. I think that was huge.
Well, in the third quarter, you finally get on the scoreboard with a 60-yard touchdown pass from Colton Troxell to Brian Banks. Can you kind of give us the play-by-play, if you will, of calling that play and setting that play up? Can you kind of give us the little bit, maybe the 1 or 2 plays before then, and then all of a sudden, here we go, we score a touchdown?
We had called that play a couple of times earlier in the game, hoping to catch him. What they were doing was they were taking their outside defender, the cornerback, and they were rolling him in to defend an inside short throw. And we were trying to catch him doing that and throw the fade over the top of it. And there was one time that we called it and we missed it. There was another time that we called it and we didn't catch him in it. That was the time we caught him. He was wide open. Ended up being a touchdown, and was a great throw and catch, and really a great run by Brian afterwards to get into the end zone. The last 15 yards was all him as far as his effort and determination to get in. He had made up his mind he was going to score, and I was really impressed by the effort that he gave. Just a well-executed play by everybody.
Well, you get on the scoreboard in the third quarter, and I appreciate you sharing the plan, if you will, because it's a lot more than just lining up, hoping this play will work. Because you've seen something, your coaching staff has seen something, and they go, this could work. Let's try this. Oh, it didn't work that time, and we go back. So most of these scores are definitely set up by the previous effort, and also the plays that have been called.
You bet.
Well, in the fourth quarter, you have another score. Troxel throws to, I think you said Marlowe Hughes, makes it, I think, 42-14 at this time. Tell us a little bit about that particular score.
You know, that drive was a pretty special drive for us as far as the season's concerned, and it showed improvement. And it showed improvement that we needed to make that we had not made up to that point, as far as accurate reads on who to throw the ball to, correct decisions on whether to hand off or throw, good throws when we made the throw. That was just a well-executed drive, and we took care of the football. We didn't turn it over. And so, you know, I really felt like, you know, it's nice to have a 60-yard touchdown pass. Those are important to the outcome of the game. But long-term success, it's critically important to be able to sustain a drive, execute multiple plays correctly, stack those plays together. I think if you're going to be a good football team, you got to do that. And I really felt like that was a drive where all those things kind of came together for us. It was a great place to point to on Saturday. We were watching video, and that, you know, this is what it really looks like and it's supposed to look like when you do it right. And it was good that we had an example of us doing it correctly to refer to. The kids could see themselves doing what they were supposed to do multiple plays in a row. And so it was a positive for sure.
So the game is over, and undoubtedly disappointment with everybody involved. You're in the locker room, end of game. What's the mood of the team? Was there this, you know, to capitalize on what you just said, was there this thought of this energy? Okay, we did put together a long drive. Let's get this behind us, move forward, or was there just overwhelming disappointment? I'm just curious.
I think in that moment, as a kid and as a coach, you're more than anything else just disappointed. You want to figure out what happened, why did this happen, especially in a loss that occurred the way that one did. You know, I think there's some questions. I think watching the video and really reviewing the game to see how much of the outcome was actually under your control. You know, sometimes you're beaten by an opponent and they're just so much better than you that you don't have a lot of ability to change that outcome. And then you have games where, you know, a lot of it had to do with what you did. You can change and improve what you did, therefore you can change the outcome. I think after the video on Saturday, a lot of our kids felt like that as a team, as coaches and kids, you know, we all have to do a better job, and if we do, we could change that outcome. That wasn't necessarily a game that we shouldn't be able to win. One of the things that was exciting is we had some kids that played last night in the JV game that participated somewhat in the varsity game, our freshman kids, and they both went out and had dominant performance last night, beating Ponca's freshmen and JV teams by a total score of 54-12 between the two games. So really, you know, I think overall we had a great practice yesterday, and so the kids' response to the loss and to their mistakes, I think, has been very positive. I think it was reflected in our practice yesterday as well as our performance in those two games last night. We're going to continue to improve. We'll continue to make mistakes, but I think before it's all said and done, we can be a good football team.
In our discussion today, you've mentioned twice about watching film on Saturday. Can you kind of share with us and break it down on how a Saturday practice goes, or a practice, let's say the taping session? Does offense go here and defense go here? How do you break this down for everybody to see the film, Coach?
We basically have three groups. We have the kids that play offense, the kids that play defense, and the kids that play both. And so they've got to get exposure to both sides of the football. And so the kids that play both will split time in both groups, and the kids that play one side of the ball will spend the entire time studying the video. And as coaches, there's really a couple things you want to look for. Number one, did we communicate a game plan and the football fundamentals to the kids in a way that they could understand it? Because it doesn't matter how great of a teacher you are if the student doesn't learn. Sure. What matters is how well the student learns it. And then if they did learn it and they did understand it and they demonstrated the ability to do it well, why did they not do it well consistently? And so, you know, those are the two things I think you deal with as a coach and as a player is, number one, did I understand and did I know? And if not, we've got to fix that. And that if I did understand and I did know what I was supposed to do, why did I not do it consistently? And so those are the things you work on to improve.
We have our helmet in front of us again to remind us about all the character development or character emphasis that you place on the entire team, and on each day you're working on that. Is there, I know we had talked in the past about courage being one of the entities of that character development. Coach, what's the emphasis for this week?
This week we're covering Tony Dungy's book Uncommon, and we're going to study a part of the book where he talks about what it looks like to be a positive thinker. And to create a common habit of thinking positive thoughts and responding to things that happened last Friday night in the correct way. You know, Friday night happened to make us better. but you have to believe that, you have to live that, and you have to continually reinforce that. And that's our goal this week is to improve as a result of that.
Well, our next game is this Friday night coming up, and that would be Sand Springs. And Sand Springs opened up with the win, Coach. They played the Tulsa Hale Rangers over there in Tulsa.
Yeah.
And looks like they had a big win in their opener. Excuse me. What do we know about Sand Springs?
That game was pretty much over by halftime. They were very dominant. In the last 2 years, they've beaten Tulsa Hale about 125-14. They've had a pretty dominant series with them. We lost a close one to them last year. They're a good team. They're very athletic, very active on defense, very aggressive offensively. Their quarterback is a very good player. It's going to be a tough ball game. We're going to have to play well. We're going to have to do some things that we did not do well last week, well this week if we expect to win. We're going to have to take care of the football. We're not going to have drive extending penalties on defense. We're going to have to do things the way we've been taught to do them, and we're going to have to do them with a great effort. I think we can do those things. I think it's going to be an opponent that if we play well, we have a good expectation of a positive outcome. And if we don't, they'll expose us in our mistakes. And so it's definitely a game that should improve us as a team and kind of measure how much we've improved this week. I'm looking forward to playing them. It's homecoming. And so you have that opportunity to celebrate people coming back and the alumni seeing what's going on, which I think is important to the kids to put their best foot forward as people come back and kind of see how they're doing and what's going on in the program.
And also, they're going to be making the announcement with Dr. Darrell Floyd and the city manager of Enid, Gerald Gilbert, on who raised the most money for the United Way campaign, City of Enid versus the Enid Public Schools. And so they'll announce that winner at halftime. So you've got homecoming, alumni coming back, United Way, and it's Friday night football. Pretty exciting, that's for sure.
Big night.
Is there anything that you wanted to share with the viewing audience? You know, we just got a few days till we kick off again. I mean, it just goes so quick. You got to just keep on going. No time to reminisce about last Friday. You got to really move forward.
You bet.
What's the word of encouragement to our fans, our community, of getting ready for their role in the stands this Friday?
You know, I think, sometimes we take a victory or a loss or a single incident in our life and we make it much bigger than it is. Those things that happen to us are a reflection of where we're at. They're not a reflection of where we want to go.
Do we forget it's a game?
Well, I think so. I mean, I do. I mean, I think sometimes, and it's a big deal. You work hard, you spend a lot of hours. Kids work really hard to be successful, and when you're not or you don't do as well as you want to, I think it's discouraging. And I think the biggest thing for people in the community to do is to encourage the kids, love on the kids, express your belief in them, and just let them know you're behind them and you're rallying behind them, and because at the end of the day, they're kids.
Well,
they're
Coach,
high school kids.
Absolutely, they're kids.
Yeah.
Well, Coach, I like what you're thinking. I like what you're saying, and we look forward to this Friday night as the Plainsmen take on Sand Springs. And have a good week of practice. And
Thank you.
We'll see you at kickoff.
Sounds good.
And we'll see you at kickoff as well. Thank you for joining us on Enid Plainsmen Football 2015. I'm Steve Keim. We'll see you Friday night. Until then, make it a great day.
We'll see you next week with another insightful show with Enid Plainsmen head football coach Steve Hayes.
Go, ready. Inside out. Give it to him. Good job, partner. Go. Hey. Touch. Come back. Here we go. Fire off. I'm driving. He's gonna. There you go. There you go. Good job.
Thank you for watching Enid Plainsmen Football 2015.